Get full episodes of The Damage Report as a podcast on iTunes and Android, and you can watch the live show every weekday on YouTube TV. Apparently last week, a 7-year-old girl from Guatemala that had crossed over the border and been taken into the custody of the Border Patrol died of dehydration and shock. This is while in the custody, not found having died. We had responsibility over this girl and she died from something that seems like it would be easily treatable. Here are the details. According to the Border Patrol records, the girl and her father were taken into custody on December 6th in New Mexico as part of a group of 163 people who approached US agents to turn themselves in. More than 8 hours later, the child began having seizures. Emergency responders measured her temperature at 105.7 degrees. And according to a statement from the Border Patrol, she, quote, reportedly had not eaten or consumed water for several days. Now, there was an attempt to revive her. Apparently she crashed, came back briefly, and then eventually died. That is the little that we know in particular about what happened. In terms of what she was given while she was in the custody of the Border Patrol, food and water are typically provided to migrants in Border Patrol custody. And it wasn't clear if the girl received provisions and a medical exam before the onset of seizures. Although, as dark as this story is in any context, the fact that something so terrible could happen and it takes a week for it to even get out, that seems even more suspicious. I mean, and what is their argument? That, oh yeah, there's so many terrible instances that we just can't disseminate all of that information? This is the sort of thing that obviously we need to know, especially as there's an ongoing conversation about what needs or should be done at the border.
Yeah, I mean, it is a tragic event. And then you find out more information about what led to the child's circumstance in which she had a seizure and died. Specifically, like the harrowing ordeal it is, the sacrifices families are willing to make in order to come to America, the land where the problems that afflicted them before, that drove them through the desert, will no longer be a problem through a result of hard work and dedication and self-sacrifice. And they try to make it sound like they're demonizing these parents for putting their kids through this. Imagine what it must be like in their lives elsewhere to go through this kind of an ordeal. But then also you're saying like this group of 165 people gave themselves up to Border Patrol agents, approached the Border Patrol agents like we want to get here. And it's not like they're running and hiding. They're like, so this idea that you can communicate to everyone the policies of America, they're like, let's go through official ports of entry. When you're fleeing violence, gangs, corrupt dictatorships, you're not on an email list that tells you how to get to the port of entry. You're not gonna put it in Google Maps. They're just gonna go north. And this is what happened and this is the result. And I think we need, this is a child. As we reported earlier on, there were 26 American children who were gunned down, or children and teachers who were gunned down in Sandy Hook. It didn't result in any positive reformation of legislation to help them. Do you think it's gonna change anything for these kids from this one kid from Guatemala?
I mean, hopefully these sorts of tragedies, if they have any silver lining, it's that hopefully it inspires a little bit of empathy or compassion amongst Americans for these sorts of situations going forward. But I want to talk about a couple of things that you mentioned there. And one on the ports of entry, like everybody seems to think, oh, well that seems reasonable. All Trump wants them to do is go through the ports of entry. Almost everything you've heard about the ports of entry is completely false. First of all, you do not need to go through a port of entry to apply for asylum. There is no legal requirement of that in any respect. These 163 migrants, if they walk up to the Border Patrol and say, I want to apply for asylum, that is their legal right to do that. That's how asylum actually works. But even worse and more deceptive, when they talk about these ports of entry, they say just go through the port of entry. That's the legal process we want. It'll be totally fine. But then when you actually start looking into what happens at the ports of entry, you find that they have backlogs going weeks or months where people who have so little resources that they literally can't drink water or eat food for days are supposed to what? Get a hotel room for a couple of months at the border? That's absurd. But it's not accidentally absurd, it's purposefully absurd. The Trump administration, the people that instituted that new recommendation, they know that these people don't have the resources to do that. They don't care. They want them to wait at the border for a day, 2 days, getting more and more desperate, less and less capable of actually sustaining their own lives, and then give up. The idea is not to slowly funnel people in, it's to cause them to turn away and to hopefully scare other people off from ever showing up in the first place. When again, you have the legal right to apply for asylum, whether you come in through one of those ports of entry or not.
Yep.
But let's read a couple of quotes here because obviously a lot of questions for the Border Patrol right now about this death and about the slow nature of the reveal of the information. This is coming from the spokesman Andrew Meehan, who said, "Our sincerest condolences go out to the family of the child," who, by the way, we're finding out a little bit of information about her. Her name is Jacqueline. They took every possible step to save the child's life under the most trying of circumstances. As fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters, we empathize with the loss of any child. It might be the case that they took every possible step. Apparently they helivaced the kid to a place, but when they were initially taken in, were they screened? Was water and food given to them? Did anyone notice that the kid had a crazy fever at that point? Maybe there's records of that, or maybe that didn't happen at all.
The most benefit of any doubt you can give to people that are on the other side of this debate is that they've gotten so into the weeds in terms of what is the right comeback in a discussion about immigration reform that they forget the specifics of people's personal experiences and what that's like. And that personal experience definitely has an analog to a lot of these same folks' own families' experiences generations ago. Like there's a large group of people in there that have that. And unfortunately, the result of that is you get a story about one 7-year-old who went through this. And hopefully that wakes everybody up to say these are people, these are human beings making huge sacrifices, and it makes it even more tragic. Like there's kids that die like this on the way. There's so many people, grown people, elderly people who are in the prime of their life who die in the middle of nowhere on the way here. And this girl got to the border and we failed her.
Yeah, once you take these people in, they are our responsibility. If they die, that is our responsibility. That is our fault fundamentally. And I want to repeat something that you said, and I understand that at any point on this show, whenever I talk, not to our main viewers, they don't need this message, but to generally the people on YouTube, when I appeal to their reason and their compassion, I am almost always wasting my time, as was demonstrated in our video about white privilege a couple of days ago. But you talked, so we're gonna put this video, and I want you to check the comments right now. People have had time, they've been watching a few minutes of this video, or they watched 5 seconds and then began commenting that they hate the story. They will say, those parents are awful. How could you do that? And that seems almost like empathy, that they care about the kid. But it's not, it's at best the dark mirror of empathy. Because in no way did they put themselves in the position of the people that this story is about. Like you said, think about what it would take for you to be willing to do something that could theoretically result in the death of your child. How much worse must your default situation have been? And so when I ask these people to put yourself in their shoes, that's not just a rhetorical thing. I really want you to think about it. What must the situation be like? But the people posting in the comments and the people that will tweet us, they don't actually think about that. They don't think or care about what it was like for these people that led them to make a multi-thousand-mile trek that could likely result in them being robbed or beaten or raped or killed, or their child could die. But that situation still exists. This child has died. I want to avoid future people dying unnecessarily. But again, appeals to compassion generally they fall on deaf ears.
What an optimistic approach you've taken.
It is, sorry, the kid just died. It's a bit of a downer, honestly.
Yeah, it is a total downer.
Yeah, and I want to put one more, first of all, really fast, I know we're going over. So earlier this week, when they knew that this had happened, but before we had heard about it, the commissioner for the Border Patrol, Kevin McKeelan, was testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee and said, our Border Patrol stations were built decades ago to handle mostly male single adults in custody, not families and children. So the stations are built for that. The procedures are built for that. They are used to having relatively more vigorous and fit people. Not kids, not 7-year-olds. Have they actually caught up? I hope that they're trying at this point, considering that the situation has changed, but I have my worries. And I want to flash back to something that happened a little bit earlier this year. So remember again, we got a group of 163 people in, and we literally could not provide the water necessary for one of them to not die. This is a headline from the New York Times earlier this year. Migrant detention centers are like a summer camp, official says at hearing. I don't know what summer camps this official is familiar with, maybe from a horror movie. But that's not the sort of summer camp that we should be running for these people who are desperately fleeing for their lives and their freedom.
Summer internment camps.
Something more like that, honestly. Thank you very much for watching this clip from the Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.